This is Matt Hurt at Obsessive Viewer on Twitter.
This is Tiny at Obsessive Tiny on Twitter.
This is Mike White, and you can find me on Twitter at I am Mike White.
And this is ObsessiveViewer.com's The Obsessive Viewer Podcast. Hello, and welcome to The Obsessive Viewer. We're a weekly movie and TV podcast that covers a specific topic, be it genre, trope, movie, or show, each episode. You can find back episodes at ovpodcast.com, find the blog at obsessiveviewer.com, and you can also subscribe to the subreddit at obsessiveviewer.reddit.com. I changed that up this week, and that tripped me up. Yeah. Just what I said. Anyway, if you want to help...
speaking of changing up what you said, I changed the on Twitter to the last. I switched the way I said it.
You did, I noticed.
Yeah.
That's how you know we're doing it for real.
Right?
It's not, we don't pre-record the intros.
Exactly. Oh, yeah.
Usually I say, on Twitter, and I am Mike. I go the other way around. Whatever.
Anyway, if you want to help support the podcast, go to patreon.com/obsessiveviewer, or you can simply leave us a rating and review on iTunes. It actually helps us out a ton, and we would really appreciate it if you took the time to just write a quick review on iTunes and preferably give us 5 stars. So how's it going, guys? We're here to talk about Civil War. How are you guys going? How are you guys doing?
Magnificent.
It's good.
Very good.
Great. Get to do a movie review. I feel like I haven't done a movie review in a year.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, because whenever you come back, we always do extended potpourri and stuff like that.
We do potpourris, we do topics and stuff, but I've always felt some of our best stuff is reviews, so I'm excited.
Oh, yeah. This is very exciting, and this is a big one, too. But before we actually get to that review, I just have a few news updates and housekeeping things to do. The first thing that I want to bring up is just really briefly, again, I mentioned it last week, but I've relaunched my solo side project podcast Anthology, which is a podcast exploring science fiction anthology storytelling during television's first golden age, beginning with The Twilight Zone. Basically, I'm going through The Twilight Zone and reviewing one episode of that show per week, and also doing a supplemental review of a related title each week. So I'm having a lot of fun with that. You can find that at anthologypod.com. And then also, this was pretty awesome because I was in the theater for Civil War when I got the notification of this, but this guy, John Stark at macthemovieguy.com, he reblogged our summer box office challenge, and he went through and made his own that is incredibly extensive. He went through his top 19 plus honorable mentions. He even critiqued our picks and had some very choice but appropriate critiques for mine because yeah, it was interesting. For brevity, I'm not going to go through all of his stuff, but I'll have the link for that in the show notes, and you can also find the show notes and links and everything to everything we discuss in this episode at obsessiveviewer.com/OV167. And then let's see. And then also, I will be on a future episode of Film Schlubs Film Talk that should be dropping sometime in the next week or so. We're going to talk about Green Room. I mentioned that last week. And then, Tiny, you've been doing some recording too.
I have, yeah. I took a hiatus, basically, from my side project podcast, The Secular Perspective, and I recorded last night with Chad, and there's a new host that's been on there for a few months now. She's really awesome, so it was the 3 of us. I had a fantastic time. I think I'm going to start recording more with them. We're up to 60 episodes over there now.
Nice.
So, 60th episode, so yeah, look for me more over there if you're into that.
Nice, and that's at thesecularperspective.com.
Yes, sir.
Well, this is a big review for us because it's likely going to hopefully be the biggest box office performance of the summer, I think. And to kind of give an update on our summer box office challenge, for our bonus questions, we each picked which movie in the top 10 will have the highest opening weekend box office performance. And if I'm not mistaken, Mike, you guessed $180 million for Captain America Civil War, and it made $181. So
Sweet, I'm a genius.
Right?
I had a feeling, guys. I had inside info.
That's the only explanation I have. I picked 250 million. So anyway,
I mean, that's cute.
Yeah. So anyway, so before we get into the actual review, we're basically going to have a big spoiler section for this because, I mean, everyone's seen it and most likely everyone's going to have seen it by the time they listen to this. So before we get to our overall thoughts and spoilers for it and everything, I just want to kind of go around and find out how we watched the movie and what the experience was like. If we watched it in 2D, 3D, IMAX.
Were there 3D viewings? Were there 3D showings?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
There were.
It was in the 3D.
Mm-hmm.
So
Really?
yeah. So Tiny, how did you watch this movie?
I saw it regular 2D at Glendale here in Indianapolis with my girlfriend on Saturday. I felt bad because she had not seen Age of Ultron.
Oh.
And like I was like, I can just go by myself, and she was like, no. And so I gave her like a synopsis of Age of Ultron so she wouldn't be lost. But it was the theater wasn't full, but it was at least 3/4 capacity.
Nice.
Yeah, it was good.
Mike, how about you?
I saw it on Thursday night. I'm trying to think of what I had to do. Oh yeah, I had to I had a little gig at my wife's art show that I played. So we had to see kind of a later show. So we went to see it 9:30 in Evansville. I saw it in 2D, which is the only way I would see it. Regular screen, not IMAX. Saw it with my buddy Jake. It was our regular Thursday night movie. And I'd say the theater was it started out like there are no lines anymore. It's not really like a big deal to get in, which as an anxious person that helps a lot. But I do kind of miss the fanfare of the whole thing. That's kind of gone. There were plenty of empty seats.
Right. Well, you still have Star Wars for that, so I suppose.
And even then, I just straight walked in.
Really?
I mean, we had tickets to 10:30 and got there an hour early, and there were no lines. And I just said, "Can I exchange my ticket for a 9:30 show?" And they said, "Yeah."
Was this opening weekend? Opening night?
This was opening night.
Really?
Yep. Not a full theater.
Huh.
Yeah.
We were in line.
Yep.
We had to park. We couldn't even park in the parking lot of the theater. We had to park in a lot next to the property.
Yeah.
The line was outside.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Parking was weird. But they do, and I don't know how they do this or how they afford this, or they have some deal where they can show as many showings as they have. They have a show about every 15 minutes at our movie theater.
Yeah.
Is that the case where you guys are?
For most of the theaters, yeah. It seems like mostly like obviously the bigger theater capacity ones have it like that. I know that like the theater that I prefer in the area, it's Traders Point here in Indianapolis. It's been having, I don't know if they're struggling or what, but they've been having like they haven't been having like as many late showings during the week. Like it's like I'll go to a 7:30, 8 o'clock showing, and that's like the last showing of the night. And by the time I get out, like they're breaking down the concessions and everything.
Yeah, and they did that to us a little while ago at Showplace. They kind of nixed late shows. In fact, AMC on the West Side doesn't show late shows at all anymore, which was kind of a bit of a conflict for me because I had class on Thursday nights, and so we had to go to either on Wednesday. But then around the holidays, Showplace, I guess, figured out their stuff, so they've got 9 o'clock shows and 10 o'clock shows. But even on Star Wars, we straight walked in.
Wow,
interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I saw it in 2D on Saturday, a Saturday matinee with a pretty large theater. It was mostly not to capacity, but I mean it was a pretty sizable thing, probably 85% filled. And I know that I do this a lot. I know that I do, but my God, I just need to really rant for just a second. Kids, man, kids in the theater. Like, I get it. I understand they're kids. They can't, like I understand and everything, but there were kids in the theater, like a kid right behind me that was kind of like talking throughout it, like his parents kept shushing him and everything. So it was fine. It was not disruptive or anything. But the kid sitting 2 seats next to me was speaking to his father at full volume throughout the entire movie,
Ugh.
and the dad did not do a single thing. And I'm like, in that situation, like I'm getting to the point with like people disrupting theater viewings for me that I'm like on the cusp. I'm not a confrontational person, so I'm like on the cusp of like telling them to just please shut up. Like I almost did that with 10 Cloverfield Lane, but like I just resisted and I just changed my seat. But this one, like in this situation, it's like it's a kid, so you can't like. I feel like I can't like look to the guy and be like, "Hey, control your kid," because that's kind of a. I mean, I don't want to do that. I don't want to tell someone that their kid is an asshole. But I just
it's not the kid. The guy's the ass.
Oh, I agree completely, and. It's just I'm not a confrontational person, so I don't want to say that to just a regular person talking, but I will if I'm slowly getting to the point where I'm just going to be like, hey, shut up, or hey, please be quiet, or something. But like I just feel like a kid, I can't do that, even when the kid is running around during the Jungle Book and oh god, I just don't think, I don't know. I hate these experiences where my viewing experience is disrupted because people don't appreciate that we're in a theater and that people can hear them. And it's so aggravating to me because I'm good during the movie. I don't say anything.
Yeah.
And it's just, oh God. Yeah.
I think you're within your right to say something too, especially because of the fact that you paid money to be there.
Right.
And
yes.
movies are so expensive now. I mean, yeah, I think you're completely justified.
Mm-hmm.
This is a whole podcast. Talk about theater etiquette and the conditions and the status of theaters these days. It's really kind of a shame.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. And yeah, I just wanted to just mention that just as just a small get it off my chest rant. Also, Pat and Tyler both at the Nerds You're Looking For, they on their episode reviewing this, they mentioned that they had Pat had a whole family that was sitting right next to them, and he has this whole story where the father was having a conversation with Pat during the movie.
Oh my god!
And it's that's my nightmare. No, don't just stop. We're not in this together. It's
wow.
Yeah, so I definitely sympathize with that. But anyway, I saw it in 2D, pretty packed theater. What I noticed though is that the theater I was in, I don't know if it was just the theater or what, but the sound was kind of quiet, or maybe it was because a kid wouldn't shut the up right next to me. But I couldn't I kind of wished it was louder, and I don't want to shell out the extra money for IMAX, and I don't want to see it in 3D, but I'm reaching the point where maybe I'm going to have to, because if that kind of thing keeps happening, I kind of feel like I'm not getting the full effect in a normal theater these days. And that's kind of that's kind of a shame, because I don't want to see it in 3D.
I agree.
Yeah. Yep. So why don't we go ahead and get into our overall thoughts of the movie. This will be just kind of a broad strokes thing, and then we'll go ahead and jump into a spoiler heavy discussion, and we'll have a full spoiler warning and everything before we get into that. But right now we're just going to do our broad strokes thing. And Mike, since you are our resident comic book nerd and you know this world better, well, really at this point I feel like it's more the cinematic universe than anything. So I feel like we're kind of almost, maybe not on even ground, but maybe you don't have as much of a thing above us with comic book dumb. But what were your thoughts on Civil War? And were your broad thoughts?
I think you bring up an interesting point about how we're kind of on an even playing field. And I was talking to a former student about the movie, and he said, as a comic book fan, some of it bothered him, and it bothered him that it wasn't the Superhuman Registration Act, and the thing that's called Civil War was not the Civil War he knew. And I had to say, maybe you'll grow out of that, because when I was your age, that kind of stuff pissed me off as well. But this is the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It really has very little to do with the comic book universe that we're used to, and really anybody that's still hung up on that, I think you're 10 years too late to care about that sort of thing, right? It's a completely different universe. They're different stories. the title Civil War and the idea of Civil War is a property. They're cashing in on your memory and nostalgia. They're cashing in on the idea that maybe you haven't even read it, but you know what it's about and it's a popular thing. And they're also cashing in on this cool idea. So no, the movie doesn't have to have anything to do with the comic books except that it features some of the characters and they show you some nods. So I guess I'm going to agree with you. You know, if you guys have questions about who a character is or some of the Easter eggs, I think that's where my expertise comes into play. But as far as the cinematic universe, I kind of like that we're on an even footing.
Me too.
That said, I think the movie is fantastic. I think there were some parts where it got a little slow, and I definitely want to talk about that. And I don't think it was a perfect movie. I talk a lot about movies that I think are transcendent movies that either define or transcend, move above the genre. And I think about superhero movies that are transcendent. And I've said The Dark Knight is the transcendent movie. More recently, I said The Winter Soldier, I think, is a transcendent movie. The Civil War, I don't think transcends. I think it's really good. I don't think it does a whole lot new. That said, though it doesn't transcend, it might be, and we'll get into this, and you know me, I like grand proclamations. It might be the best comic book movie I've ever seen. It's definitely the best Avengers movie. And I'll say what I mean by that is it's only a Captain America movie by what I think is contractual obligation.
Right.
By all means, it's an Avengers movie. By all means, it's Avengers 3. We can get into that if you guys want, but I think it's the best Marvel movie. I think it's one of, if not the best comic book movie, if you don't count The Winter Soldier and The Dark Knight, because they're something else. They're transcendent. So yeah, really good. Can't wait to talk about it. Can't wait to spoil some stuff.
Nice. Tiny, how about you?
I agree very wholeheartedly with Mike. But I remember as I was sitting there watching it, I was just thinking throughout it that you know, the Russo brothers really set themselves up incredibly well with Winter Soldier, because like Mike said, that is a transcendent film. And I think that's a great term or a great word to descriptor for that for the genre or the effect that movie had. And I think with Civil War, I feel like they have supplanted Joss Whedon as the center, the epicenter of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. They more than took over the reins from Joss Whedon. It's just Joss Whedon's known for his really deep and rich characters, and I think the Russo brothers, I think they outdo him in some instances with the choices and the directions that they take their characters in.
I agree. There's depth.
Absolutely.
That's there.
I mean, you could make an argument that this entire movie is a character study. I mean, that's so impressive given how fun and enthralling the action is in this movie, and how much comedy there is. But at the end of the day, I was just sitting there at the end of the movie. I was just sitting there, just amazed at how familiar I was with all of these characters. I mean, this, as far as appearances go, this blows every other movie out of the water. I mean, there's so many people in this, and I feel like we got a nice snippet of every character. Maybe you could definitely make a case against some of them, but I was satisfied with what we got as far as addressing that typical problem where you kind of overflood or overdo it with cameos and characters appearing in a movie. Their ability to balance, the Russo brothers' ability to balance a movie is just blew me away. And they continue to do it with every new movie. So I was shocked that I was blown away, but I really was.
Okay, so my thoughts on it. Okay, so I'm going to preface this, and this isn't really a fair. Well, I mean, it's a very fair comparison because it's both they're both in the same context. and it's both recent and everything. But I don't want to mar this review, or I don't want to hammer home this comparison in this review. But it's so frustrating to me that Marvel can make such a good movie that feels so effortless, while DC had Batman v Superman. And all I'll say on that note is that if DC and Warner Brothers had hired the right people and put the same amount of time and creativity in their movies and kept Zack Snyder as far away from that franchise as they could have, we could have theoretically had 2 huge successful superhero cinematic universes right now.
Yeah.
And it's so frustrating to me. So I won't compare it to Batman v Superman anymore. I just wanted to say that beforehand. But my God, this movie was so freaking good.
Yep.
It was, I just, like Tiny said, just the balance that the Russo brothers have on all of these characters. And yes, Mike, you're totally right that this is an Avengers movie. This is an Avengers movie. This is Iron Man 4. This is Captain America 3, all in one. But it's mostly Avengers 3, and I don't even mind. It's fine. It's totally fine for me because it's so well done, and it exists in this world that has so much already in the past 10 years, 8 years, so much history built into it. And that's the reason why I'm in love with the cinematic universe, with the Marvel Cinematic Universe, is because it is transplanted. From my perspective, as someone who hasn't read comic books and has never been into comic books, it's transplanted the experience of the comic book fan to the medium that I love, which is movies. And it's because you've got Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., you've got Agent Carter, all of these little side things that are they feel like one-off things and side plots that run concurrently with what's going on in the main story, but you don't need to read them or watch them at the same time. And all of this,
which is like reading comics, by the way.
Right.
We were talking about that today. You don't have to have it all.
Exactly, and that's exactly what I'm saying. There's stuff in this movie that plays on that, you'll get more appreciation of it if you follow those tangential things, but by no means do you need to. And I loved it. I don't know what else to say without going into spoilers, but it's just the action is so well done. I thought that some of the set pieces early on though were a little. I think not problem that I had, but the issue that I had from my perspective was that I had basically, when the Russo brothers made Winter Soldier, the style of combat, the way that they made Cap's movements and his action and choreography feel so much better than the first movie, and how he used his shield so perfectly, and it was just shot extraordinarily well. All of that was kind of novel and kind of new. So seeing it again in this movie, seeing all of these movements and everything, didn't really have that same effect on me. So I docked it a little bit early on. But there's one sequence in this movie that I swear to God, it might be my favorite of any Marvel Cinematic Universe movie.
Nice.
Because it is so amazing.
Cool.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And the storyline was fantastic. There are people who have been saying that they feel like it was overcrowded and kind of the, obviously if you put in a bunch of different characters into one movie, it's gonna feel overcrowded. I didn't for a second feel like any of this was overcrowded.
No, not me.
Yeah, and we'll talk more in spoilers, but my God, I can't wait for the Spider-Man movie. I can't wait for Black Panther.
Yeah,
I thought Chadwick Boseman was amazing.
Yeah,
and Tom Holland was just perfect. There's when he's on screen, I was just in awe. I had the dumbest grin on my face because it felt so special to me. And I'm not even a Spider-Man fan by the comic book thing. I really liked the first 2 movies that Sam Raimi did. I thought that Amazing Spider-Man with its faults was okay, but seeing him portrayed in this way, it feels so right to me. Yeah, and I loved that, and I can't wait to see more on that. And yeah, overall, I just loved it. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. Let's go into spoilers because I'm beating around the bush with a lot of this. So, okay, any more broad thoughts, guys?
No.
All right. Well, we're going to go ahead and just jump right into spoilers. So if you haven't seen the movie yet, please pause the podcast, go watch it, then come back, or skip ahead to the Potpourri section, which you can find a timestamp for that in the show notes of this episode, or at obsessiveviewer.com/OV167.
They're coming for you.
I'm not the one that needs to watch their back.
This doesn't have to end in a fight, Tony. You just started a war. Stay down. Final warning. I could do this all day.
And spoilers on right now. So
do you guys want to start with, like, maybe before we get into gushing about the movie, maybe talk about some of the things we didn't like, some of the things maybe that didn't work, or even we can talk about some of the things that we've heard that people don't like, and kind of debunk those or argue those.
I like that idea, especially the parts that people didn't like, because I think a very interesting place to start is I don't know about disparity, but the differences between the way Civil War works out in this film versus the comics.
Yes, that's exactly where I was going to start. Essentially, is the Sokovia Accord enough of an inciting incident for you? Is that conflict enough, as opposed to the comic book's Superhuman Registration Act? Which, again, don't stop worrying about the Superhuman Registration Act. This is not that. So give it up, kid.
I mean, it doesn't bother me, and the thing is, I'm not really familiar with the non-human registration act, or that's not really something I'm too familiar with. So,
yeah.
I mean, I think the way they wove together the conflict and the experience of this and all the characters, everything really comes together beautifully in this movie. I don't care, because I didn't see it coming, and it really shocked me. And I mean, I think everybody played it really well.
Yeah. Well, what I've said is there are no secret identities in these movies. So why are you talking about a registration act? The Registration Act had to do with trying to get all superheroes to register with the government. So basically they had to register their real names and that kind of thing. So it's a little similar in that they're working for the government, but it really had to do with secret identities, and there are none in the MCU.
it seems like the MCU is kind of just actively against the whole secret identity thing, because
yeah, kind of. Well, except Spider-Man.
Well, yeah, Spider-Man is just about the only one. Like even Black Panther, like it's revealed who he is as soon as he's on the scene, and Bucky Barnes is all over the news, and like the first movie of the entire MCU ends with Tony Stark saying, "I'm Iron Man."
Yeah, exactly.
And it's silly to expect the source material to be handled or to adapt the source material as it's written, because they've created their own universe in this franchise.
And we've hammered that point home. So what I'm really trying to get at is just really aside from that. So let's ignore the comparisons to the Superhuman Registration Act.
Okay.
Do you believe there were two effective arguments
between Tony and Steve?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that it was a pretty good depiction of their differing ideologies, and it's kind of, it plays up the whole Captain America is a Boy Scout and he's going to do right no matter what. In what I kind of wish, and I'll need to see a second viewing of the movie to see if it's there, and maybe I just missed it because there's a lot in the movie. But I kind of wish that it would have played up, and maybe it wouldn't even have fit. But I kind of wish that it would have played up Captain America's history. Like he's seen what happens when governments interfere. Like he was in World War II, and he's seen what happens when total control is given, or when control is relinquished to someone who uses it nefariously or horribly.
But they don't have to show that, and that's what's so great. Like, we know that, and I think that's a strong, like, that's confidence in your characters and the story that you're telling on the part of the Russo brothers, that they didn't need to do that.
Yeah, there's so much foundation has been laid that you don't need to reference it all that much. And I'm with you on that. That's a very, very good choice on their part.
Yeah, I agree.
Go ahead.
Oh, I agree. I just kind of wish that it was more, that it was presented as more of his bigger issue with it, or it was. I kind of wish that it was more of his inner turmoil was about, that reason exactly. Like, I kind of wish that it was depicted a little bit more for my liking. But I totally see your guys' points.
I thought that both sides. I think we got an accurate depiction. I don't know. I'm kind of at a loss for words. The movie is that good. I think we see a good amount of both sides. I will say, however, there are times where I think that the Russo brothers, they kind of tip their hand and show you that they're on Captain America's side.
Yeah, that's true. But I think that's
which is okay.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a bad thing, because I feel like Tony Stark and Iron Man is such an emotionally driven person. Even though he tries to keep that part of himself guarded, it's very plain that he's a very emotionally driven person, and that's why he makes the decisions he makes in this film, is because he is just racked with guilt. And I love the way they depicted it in this movie. They didn't slap us over the face with it, because, like Mike said, it's right there. They don't need to reference it. It doesn't need to be a heavy-handed thing. We all know what's going on here. And I think there could have been a little bit more dialogue that kind of fleshes that out. Someone could have called attention to the fact that I think Tony's overreacting. But I don't necessarily miss that it wasn't there, I guess. I mean, because I think the conflict when it all comes to a head and you see the huge big fight with everybody, it's kind of fun more than it is daunting.
Yeah.
And so they save the big, heavy, like, rip your heart out conflict for the conclusion of the climax of the film.
I can't wait to talk about that.
And I'm glad they did that, because it made that climax so much more pertinent and heavy. So I kind of like the way that they didn't necessarily flesh everything out, or I think the motivations of the characters and the two opposing sides, I'm fine with it. While it was imperfect, those imperfections are really not a big deal.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I just want to say I didn't have a problem with the actual conflict between them themselves, and I agree completely that I think the Russo brothers were definitely Team Cap. Yeah. It's even in like the wardrobe of Tony, at least in that scene. Where is it? The sometimes I want to punch your perfect teeth scene. Like his clothing is patterned after past like villains. Like I'm thinking Robert Redford in Winter Soldier, Winter Soldier. And it's just, I mean, it's clear, and I don't mind that at all. I thought that it's depicted very well, and yeah.
Well, and we can talk about, it's always fun to talk about what side you're on, and kind of where we can go from there. And we'll talk about that in a second. But there's a scene about halfway through the picture, and I'm quoting my friend Dustin here, who's been on the podcast before. So if he's listening, hi Dustin. We talked about this on the phone about 3 hours ago. The moment where before some heavy stuff goes down and they arrest Steve Rogers for the chase on the streets with Black Panther and Bucky, and they bring him in, and Tony is trying to convince Steve to join their side, and he shows him the pens, and he says, these were my father's, and please sign, and you get the sense that Tony is so desperate to have Steve on his side. He is so desperate to convince him, not necessarily that he's right, but that he wants him on his side. And I love that for so many deep reasons. I love that because he knows that Steve Rogers is the best of them, right? Kind of reminds me of the Dark Knight. He knows Captain America is the best of them. He also knows that while they have done bad things to get good things done, he is almost jealous of Steve Rogers that he's able to keep doing what he's doing without being racked by this guilt. So he's like, why can't... it's almost like Tony is saying that he's giving up his own power to the government. Why can't Captain America also give up his? What can I do to maybe bring him down to my level? Which is why I think, the Russo brothers are so forcefully showing us that Captain America is this perfect good. He's the hopeful one, right? He, dare I say that this podcast gets too political, he's kind of the liberal one, right? He is the one who sees that, there are bad things about being too accepting, but if we hope and believe in people, the best things happen, right? That's what Captain America is. And I think in that scene, Tony Stark is showing that he believes that and he wants Cap to be on his side.
Wow, I think you deconstructed that pretty flawlessly.
Right, that was
or
perfect.
Dustin did.
Yeah. Well, we hashed it out together.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's spot on. I agree completely. Yeah.
I also think part of the motivation in that scene is that Tony just wants to feel better. Mm-hmm. He just feels like crap, and he wants a Band-Aid to make him feel better, and the Sokovia Accords is that Band-Aid, and he wants it to be a sweeping thing to make him feel better and feel more secure. So I think his emotions play a big, his knack for making decisions based on his emotions plays a big role in that as well. But I agree that scene was really incredible. I mentioned before how in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, like when the first Avengers movie came out, people loved the dialogue scenes more than they liked the action scenes. Right. And I think this is a continuation of that. The Russo brothers have taken up that mantle and continued the concept of quality dialogue and working your characters. They have a reason why they're saying what they're saying. It's not just, they're not just posturing and trying to be badasses. They're people, and I just love that they're doing that, because what's a great story needs great characters, and they're pulling that off.
Yeah, and I like what you said, Tiny, about Tony wanting a Band-Aid, because his life is kind of in the crapper in this movie, and he's kind of like, from the beginning we see him with his VR tech thing, augmented reality, whatever you want to call it, where he's talking about his parents and reconciling their loss and everything, his loss of them, and then his Pepper's gone, and he's got Dean Pelton pestering him in the hallway, or pestering him on the stage, and then he's got the guilt of the mother of the guy in Sokovia. I like that he is frantic to feel peace, and he's reaching out to any means to do that, even if I don't know, even if objectively it's the wrong idea, or it's not a good idea for them to do it if Captain America's right, but he's still in a place where he needs it, and it comes through so well in the movie.
It's very endearing for Tony Stark.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I finally, I've liked all the movies, and I've liked everything that Tony Stark is in, and I particularly like Robert Downey Jr., but I've never felt for Tony Stark, and I don't know, I'm not sure that we're ever supposed to, and this, I think, was the first time where, again, like you said, Matt, I don't agree with his perspective. I'm Team Cap all the way. And I'm kind of the hopeful guy. I see it now. I get it now, and I feel for Tony.
Me too. Yeah. Poor guy. With his billions of dollars.
Another thing that people I've heard complain about is that Helmut Zemo is wasted. He's kind of a big Captain America villain, and people are saying that he is doesn't have enough to do.
I don't know if I disagree with that, because I don't know the context of the character or anything, but I thought that the characterization of the villain in this movie didn't even really need that much of a villain, and his arc through the movie and his plan is a little convoluted and a little it's a little contingent on chance, just a tad, but
Yeah.
I mean, my God, that ending, like at the end when you realize that his whole, like, he's breaking up the Avengers and he's using it because Bucky killed Tony's parents. Like, I was floored at that moment. And what amazed
me too. I didn't see it coming.
Yeah, I totally didn't see it coming. And,
I was delightfully shocked.
Right. And we're jumping around a little bit, but we can go ahead and talk about the ending now, and then we can go back and talk about the set pieces and characters and everything. But the moment when Tony goes in and like Bucky and Steve see him, and like in that moment in the movie, like Tony's there to make amends, he's there to stop the super soldiers and all that stuff, and I'm all for it. I'm like, oh, this is going to be awesome. But in the back of my head, I'm thinking like, oh, all the marketing, the trailers, like I've seen this, they're going to fight. The three of them are going to fight, duke it out and everything. And I'm like, what could possibly happen that would cause this?
So glad. I was worried that they were going to take on 5 Winter Soldiers.
Me too.
This would be a really lame end to this movie if this is how it's tied up. I hope they figure this out.
After seeing the way it played out, I definitely, like, in retrospect was like, yeah, that would have been disappointing. But like in the moment, I was amped up. I was all for it. And then the moment that you realize that, I'm like, it blew my mind. It absolutely blew my mind. And I felt the emotion in that scene, and the emotion of Steve knowing, and that Steve is so honest, and he tells Tony that he knew about it. It's so heartbreaking, and I mean, it was an incredible moment and everything. And yeah, Tiny, what'd you think?
Oh, I agree. I thought it was a remarkably effective misdirect. I'd call BS on anyone who says they saw that coming. That was really well done.
I've talked to a couple people who did.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Maybe they did, but I find it hard to believe. It was so effective, and it, like I said, it just makes that final climax so. I guess that's a bit of a redundancy there. The final climax. It makes the climax of the film so much. It gives it so much more weight, and it makes it absolutely pulls in the audience because you're so invested at this point. It just hit every single. It just hit every single note that it needed to hit to get you to that point where you're just on the edge of your seat at the very end there. And yeah, I really like the way they did that. Because I mean, this movie didn't need a villain.
Right.
The villain is an intangible idea that's internally ripping apart this group that we've become so comfortable with and become so familiar with and fallen in love with in so many different ways. That you didn't need a physical person or whatever, an actual villain to rip them apart. All you needed was an idea, and that's what's so powerful about this movie.
You know, speaking of the villain, and that's kind of why I brought this up, and you know, the disappointment in Baron Zemo, Helmut Zemo. I'm really frustrated with all of these so-called forever comic fans that are coming out of the woodworks and saying, oh, they ruined Helmut Zemo, or they ruined this and they ruined this. And I claim to be a pretty big comic book fan, but I'm also of the mind that if I don't know something, I'm not going to pretend that I knew about it. I had no idea who Zemo was. I mean, I had a passing, I've heard the name and I've seen a comic, but you wouldn't call me a Baron Zemo fan. Because nobody is. Nobody gives a fuck about Zemo. And to claim that they ruined him is bull. You just want to be in on something, and that's really there's one type of person who pretends they like comics but they didn't before, and that's fine. The more people who love comics, the better, I think. But the people who claim to be a fan of something that even fans of comics don't give a about really pisses me off. But anyway, regarding Zemo, he might as well have been called Mr. MacGuffin, I think.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
And to that end, I think that's okay, because like you said, Tiny, really, the villain is the conflict between the two of them. We just needed some sort of inciting action to get them there. So I don't know. It just kind of ruffled my feathers a little bit that people were pissed off that they quote unquote ruined Zemo or wasted him. It's like, shut up. Nobody cares. Nobody cares about Zemo. Nobody in the Marvel Cinematic Universe cares. And I guarantee you didn't care about Baron Zemo before this movie came out, or before the Marvel Cinematic Universe, because I sure as didn't. Anyway.
We have jumped around. Spider-Man?
Oh, yes.
Man.
Okay, let's talk about the new additions, Spider-Man
Please.
and Black Panther.
Please.
Let's start with Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Where do we start with that?
Yeah.
Well, if I could share, I feel like I'm dominating this episode. I'm sorry. I was really excited about this movie, excited about this podcast. So if I could kind of pat myself on the back, really quick, there was a moment in the theater where, or in the movie where they're kind of talking about, they need backup, they need more people, and Black Widow goes, where is the person, like, I know about the guy in the basement, but where's the guy you're talking about? And I turn to Jake and I go, he's in Queens.
And Queens showed up on the screen, and I was one of those, I'm so proud of myself because I'm the coolest person in the world moments. I caught 721 Pokemon, people. Anyway.
Yeah.
But man, as soon as he showed up, it was awesome. I hesitate to say he's the best iteration of, because it was really, it was more than a cameo, but more a special feature than anything. So I'll kind of hold judgment of him being the best Spider-Man until I see a Spider-Man movie. But man, it was really good.
Yeah, I've heard people like coming out of the movie and immediately saying like, "Oh, it's the best iteration of Spider-Man. It's the best Spider-Man movie, and it's a Captain America movie." And
yeah,
like that's I get it. Yeah, I get that it's exciting and everything, but I mean, there's a decent amount of screen time and everything, and I don't know. It made me really just seeing him in that fight, which we will talk extensively about that sequence, but seeing him in the moment doing his little quips and everything and trying to impress Tony and being a teenager, it was just so beautiful. and it just it made me so excited to see his standalone movie, and knowing that that Robert Downey Jr. is going to be in the movie too makes me so happy, because their chemistry is going to be so great, and it's a great way to introduce him into this universe by playing up these two characters. And like when I saw that they were going to Queens for it, I immediately thought like, okay, yep, here we go. It's Spider-Man. I had a smile on my face, and it didn't come away at any point after that when he was on screen. But I just freaking loved it. I loved it so much. We'll talk more about the big set piece and everything, but just, man, so good. So excited to see a standalone movie. And also, we haven't really talked. Well, we talked a little bit about the title of the standalone movie, Spider-Man: Homecoming, which we don't need to go into it now. But I have a just funny anecdote that I went to Indiana Comic-Con with a frequent guest and friend of the show, Robert Feckes, and he pointed out that, and this is something I didn't really put together or anything, so I'm sure that it's all over the internet and everything, but the title Spider-Man: Homecoming is kind of a funny, it almost reads like a subtle middle finger to Sony saying like, now he's home. And I know that's a joint venture, but I love that. And I love that, thinking that, and he really does feel like he's at home in this universe already.
That's funny.
Yeah,
for sure.
I wanted to say, I think I was equally as excited as everyone else about Spider-Man.
Mm-hmm.
Just absolutely, I don't think it could have been better. I can't imagine a scenario where it would have been better. But I think part of the strength of that performance and his role in this film is the fact that he's not a lead. He's a background character, an ancillary character. He's not controlling the action of the entire movie. And so the fact that he's being thrust into this universe, and he's trying to impress people, and he's a fish out of water. I think that's kind of the strength of it. So it doesn't all it did was boost my enthusiasm for the new Spider-Man movie. But I was not even close to ready to say, oh, best Spider-Man ever, because he's going to have a different role in his own movie.
He really does work. This particular iteration worked well in that ensemble type scenario. And one of the things in the past, and I am gonna be the comic guy for a second, is I've always been a bit bothered by his presence in the Avengers in comics, because he is always kind of thrust backward a little bit. He's always kind of a supporting role, and he's my favorite superhero. I'm waiting for a big Marvel event where he saves the day, and it hasn't happened yet. But in terms of screen accuracy, it's pretty close to how he is in the comics. I thought his physicality was awesome. I really liked the wit and the wisecracking. I will say this, and call me a curmudgeon. I didn't think the Empire Strikes Back joke was all that funny.
I didn't either.
Really? I thought it was hilarious.
So as someone who loves Spider-Man and loves comics and loves Empire Strikes Back, I like that those lines are referenced. Mm-hmm. I also like the style of joke. I like that they're making fun of the fact that he is a lot younger than they are. However, as a comedian, as someone who appreciates the craft of a joke, it felt like a Yes Dear sitcom joke.
It did.
Nobody says, hey, remember that old movie Empire Strikes Back? Because Peter Parker has seen Empire Strikes Back, and he knows that Tony Stark has seen Empire Strikes Back. He's not an idiot.
Yeah.
It just seemed very forced and very very force-fed to fanboys of both franchises. It kind of bugged me.
Me too, a little bit, for those exact reasons, because no teenager, I understand, I like the concept of the joke. Yes, he's a kid, he's gonna say he's something that's so culturally relevant, especially now. Him saying it's an old movie is funny because he's a kid, but it's also this is Star Wars. If it was anything else, I would have been fine, but it's Star Wars, and
it's Star Wars,
and
exactly.
He's a nerd. Not that Star Wars is
right
anymore.
He would say, hey, that scene in Hoth and Empire when blah 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 blah. That's what he would say,
and that would almost be even more effective. That would have been a more effective joke to handle it. In the scene of that, and him totally geeking out in the middle of this battle scene would have been hysterical.
Exactly. But I think they could have found another way to make the point that they're a lot older. I just feel like, as someone who appreciates the crafting of a joke, that joke doesn't actually work.
Right.
Yeah, I guess it's not believable. It's not believable, but I laughed pretty hard.
Yeah, I mean, in the moment I laughed, but when I was like, it's a little bit of
I did too. I'll admit I laughed too, but it was wait a second, you're smarter than this.
Fair enough.
Yeah. What? That's not that good of a joke.
Yeah.
Right.
You're laughing because you love Empire Strikes Back, Mike.
Yeah, and it felt a little bit just tongue in cheek, incestuous between Disney properties too.
Yeah, that's also true. Right. Right.
But yeah, my big problem with Spider-Man though is that he didn't have, slick black hair, he didn't dance or be all depressed about anything, so
So Black Panther was
Panther.
Awesome.
God,
so cool.
Chadwick Boseman is so awesome. I've been a fan of him and everything I've seen him in. He was one of the highlights of the movie Draft Day, which is a terrible movie. And I think 42 is a little bit underrated. I think he was the best part of it, hands down. So
I think he was definitely the best part of that. But I mean, the writing wasn't for him, but it was really good.
Yeah, I think he's an up and coming actor, and I think he has been for a while. And I'm glad to see him get a huge blockbuster movie like this and absolutely shine in it.
Yeah, and I loved seeing. For me, I had no context for what Black Panther was or what his powers were or anything like that. I had no concept going in, and just seeing it, it's fully realized. It's very accessible for someone who has no context for the character, and they spend a lot of time. Basically, this is almost his origin story, essentially, and it's. I mean, they weave it into the plot so like I said at the top of this episode, kind of effortlessly, they make it so fluid and organic, and it's played up so well. And the action scenes with him, like, it's just amazing. It's amazing. I absolutely loved it, and I can't wait to see what Coogler does with Black Panther, his standalone movie. I'm so excited for that movie now.
Me too.
Yep. That'll be great.
So can we go ahead and talk about the action, the set pieces and everything, and starting with kind of the big. Well, let's start at the beginning. The kind of introductory sequence with Cap and Falcon and oh wow, what is her name? Scarlet Witch.
Scarlet Witch.
Yeah.
It's difficult because Black Widow is played by a woman named Scarlet.
It is.
That's really bothersome to me.
That kind of trips me up a little bit too. But the big crossbones scene, basically, and the kind of impetus for the entire Sokovia Accords as well. It's in Lagos, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sequence, I kind of thought it was interesting that they just blew up Crossbones. I thought that he was going to be. I wasn't expecting him to be a bigger villain in the movie and in the universe as a whole. But I liked the way that it played out and everything, and the look of horror on Elizabeth Olsen's face when she causes the collateral damage is so, like, that one scene alone. It conveys so much, and it's just so horrific and. And it was really well done to me and really well handled. And I'm trying to bite my tongue to keep from the Man of Steel references that's itching to get out, but I'm not going to compare the two. But yeah, it was so
It's
well
there.
done.
The comparison is there.
Yes.
Yeah.
But we'll leave it there. So what did you guys think of that big fight scene in the big chase sequence? And
well, I loved the team aspect of it. I love that, like, Falcon is Cap's guy. I love that. I love that he's got his kind of little team going on there, and just the dynamic was really well done. And I have a friend who is not a big movie watcher, and he kind of disagrees with a lot of movies that are popular. He kind of just he doesn't have a lot of interest, and he doesn't like a lot of stuff. So he kind of was bothered by. He thought it was very chancy that Elizabeth Olsen blew up the side of the building, and that's what started the conflict. And my disagreement with him was that it is chancy, and that's the whole thing. And he just thinks that if he goes, his problem was it looked like the Oklahoma City bombing, and if it would have blown up on the ground and killed the same amount of people, it wouldn't have been a big deal. But because she threw it up in the air, it killed a bunch of people. And I said, I get your point. I get the point that what difference does it make if it kills people on the ground or if it kills people that she does it? The movie's point is that's how the public would react to it, right?
True.
Because it's her fault, or they would perceive it to be her fault, that's how the public would react, right? And that's how the government would say, well, we better do something about this. This is a big deal.
Right.
That's the whole point.
It's because she made a choice.
Right.
So some of the fault falls on her shoulders inevitably, yeah.
Yeah, and that's what I feel was conveyed in that look on her face when it happens. And yeah, I agree with everything you said, Mike. I can't put it really any better.
Yeah, I can't elaborate on that. That was you nailed it there.
I hope I explained it well enough. He just thought that it was too much, and yeah, it was her decision, but also, like, would they have reacted so poorly if it blew up on the street and killed a bunch of people? And I said, no, because it looks like her fault, and that's the problem.
Exactly.
That's how the public would react.
Yeah, and I can totally I can see his point. I don't agree with it, but
yeah,
I think that the thing about it is that you can see that she's actively trying to get, she's saving lives by doing this and by showing that this collateral damage has happened. It shows that these enhanced people, as they're called in this universe, that they're not perfect people. They're not infallible or anything. They're very much prone to possibly making mistakes, and it's something that is organically created in the conflict of the movie that the government would that the world government would try to contain that and control that, because now they're just running on their own, and it's to a point where you can't put all your trust into that thing. So the logic checks out for why they would do the Sokovia Accords because of that, regardless of on the ground or in the sky. But yeah. So yeah, Crossbones. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I was surprised at how minimal his role was. But again, what it would have been clutter to give him an extended role in this film,
right?
And unfortunately, he had to die, and there's not another way they can really use him in the franchise anymore. So yeah, that's a little unfortunate. I was kind of surprised, but I don't know if I'm gonna miss him really.
Right. I just like Frank Grillo. I just like Frank Grillo, the actor.
Yeah.
So yeah. So Mike, you agree on everything? Anything?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the scene was cool. I don't think he'll be missed.
They didn't ruin Crossbones from the comics.
No, exactly. But I'm sure there are people who think they did.
Right. So then let's kind of jump ahead to. Well, okay, first of all, let's talk about Peggy Carter and that whole sequence and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she dies.
Yeah, which I
Off
mean,
screen.
Yeah, I won't. That's a spoiler for another thing, but I won't make that joke. But yeah, she dies, and it's planted in the Winter Soldier and everything. So you kind of know to expect it. I like that. I like that it felt. I don't know. I liked the emotion of it and how it carried through. And you have Sharon there. It's a good kind of entry point to have her have a bigger role in at least the Captain America story and everything. It just felt kind of right. And maybe that's because I knew going into it that to expect something like that. Just judging from what I read when Emily Van Camp was announced in the cast. So what did you guys think of that development in the story and how it influenced Steve in the movie?
Go ahead, Mike.
I don't think it was bad. I think it was well done. I don't know. I'm not looking for Captain America romance. I'm not saying it was shoehorned in, but I feel like I was on Captain's side. I got his perspective without that scene. If we had to cut a scene in a long movie, it's the scene I would have cut.
That's
I
fair.
agree. Yeah, I think the entire storyline from the first Captain America movie till now, the whole storyline of Agent Carter and Cap was shoehorned in. I never really cared.
Yeah, me too.
And I think part of that stems from the fact that the first Captain America movie is my least favorite of all of this Marvel Cinematic Universe. I really do not like that movie very much. And I never cared about their relationship. I thought it was unfortunate that I think it's strange that they have tried to use her as his kind of like tether to the past, but they have Bucky Barnes there, so it's like, why can't he be that? I realize his memory's screwed up, but
Right.
I don't know. I don't think she was really a necessary character. I guess I just don't think she really needed to be there, and I don't know. I just didn't really care.
See, I see your guys' point. Yeah, sure, but I think that she needed to be there because it is a Captain America movie, and without her and with that kind of development through at least these last two movies, we get. I think without that aspect of the story, we don't get Captain America: The Winter Soldier, or we don't get Captain America: Civil War. We get Avengers 1.5 or 2. When did it come out? 1.5 for The Winter Soldier, Avengers 2.5. Civil War. I think that makes it more of a Captain America story, and it kind of grounds his development and it informs his actions a little bit more than I think you guys might be giving him credit for.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I don't know.
I think they should have done it a different way.
I guess it's just something I ignored because I'm not too worried about Peggy Carter, and also like Tiny, I dislike the first Avenger, Captain America.
Yeah,
That's understandable.
And so I don't know. I guess I could be wrong. I think if Dustin's still listening, he's also screaming at me. No, Peggy Carter's awesome. But
I
don't know,
will
whatever.
say that
I would disagree. I would disagree with your assessment that that's what grounds Winter Soldier as Captain America. I think that's a very Captain America movie.
Okay, sure, but I just also, and I guess Bucky is also kind of the other tether, but I think that just makes it more Steve Rogers' story. But I will say that in regards to Peggy, the young, probably I think teenager that was sitting in the row in front of me was devastated when he got the text in the movie. I thought she was gonna just start crying like crazy.
Like she clearly watches Agent Carter.
Yeah. Which I mean, I watched one season and thought it was just okay, so I didn't watch season 2. But yeah. Anyway, yeah. So the first, I want to say that this is probably one of the first big action set pieces. The chase, with Cap and Black Panther and Bucky. And I just want to point out the freaking incredible, like I mentioned in my broad strokes that the action in the beginning part of the movie, at least until the airport sequence, felt a little bit like it wasn't as novel to me as the action set pieces in Winter Soldier was. But in that chase sequence with Bucky and Cap and Black Panther and everyone, the moment that Bucky, like he freaking takes a motorcycle, like I think he like
yes,
it's so amazing.
Oh man,
Yeah.
He changes the direction in like midair and then jumps on it. It's just so beautiful.
I clapped.
It was so amazing.
Yeah, the acrobatics of that were really impressive.
So incredible.
That was one of my favorite parts too.
Yeah.
I felt exactly the same.
Yeah, and then all while that is happening, I'm like sitting there, and this is my first introduction to Black Panther as a superhero, basically, in the movie, and the way that, like, I'm learning his maneuvers and the way that his movements and everything. It's such an amazing set piece to me. So what do you guys think of that and everything? And also, that really.
Well, I mean, it's a great introduction to Black Panther and like his capabilities and what his shtick is, if you will. Yeah, I mean, I think it was a great way to introduce him, and it's funny. Yeah, was it that part at the end? He just pops his helmet off. And he's like, "Hey, what's up? I'm the new king of Wakanda."
Like,
if there is any confusion about whether or not they care about secret identities in this universe, they don't.
Right. Oh, Mike, what'd you think of that? Anything you want to add?
I really liked the scene as well, and we're talking a lot about the chase through the tunnel, which I thought deserves all the props it can get. But I also thought the fight in the apartment was equally cool. And Captain America trying to keep Bucky in check, keep him from killing anybody, I thought was really awesome.
Yeah, the close quarters feel of that was very, very potent.
Just really. Really brutal, very well choreographed. There's a part where Bucky gets a hold of one of the battering rams in his metal arm, which was just awesome.
So cool.
You could like feel it.
Oh yeah,
yes,
as you were watching.
Yeah, exactly.
Very cool.
I love the close quarters aspect of the apartment fight, and like you said, Mike, about Cap keeping him contained and everything. It was just such a good sequence, and you knew the motivations and you knew what was going on at all times. It was very, very well handled, as most of all of the action sequences were.
For sure.
Yeah.
Totes.
For sure.
So, can we go ahead and talk about this airport sequence? Because
Talk about it.
This is the scene where I'm like, this might be my favorite Marvel Cinematic Universe moment.
Nice.
Because it's like, on one hand, yes, they are fighting each other, and it is like, it kind of, in the trailers, like, it kind of comes off a little cheesy that they're running at each other and they're about to start fighting, but the context of it's like no one, and they even kind of make reference to this, like when Black Widow goes after Hawkeye, and like they're like, we're still friends, right?
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, it's like siblings wrestling around, and they're fighting because one broke the other's favorite toy.
Right.
And it's so, I mean, and that's not to undersell the emotion of it and the actual conflict between them, but we get the real, like, that's one of the things that I appreciated about that final battle between Bucky and Cap and Tony, is that we get the satisfaction of the
anger.
The anger, yeah, the anger and the real stakes at the end. So it wasn't just like we're gonna fight each other because we're disagreeing. It's like there were real stakes later on, but that sequence,
and it's so great and smart that they have both. It's so smart.
Oh yeah,
because Batman versus Superman was cheap,
right?
And it was settled because their mother's name was Martha. It was such a dumb movie. It was so stupid, so stupid.
I agree completely.
Yeah.
Oh God.
Where are the stakes anyway?
Yeah.
Whatever.
So, but yeah, that sequence. And okay, did you guys notice this, or am I driving, or am I going crazy? But was the Bluth stair car there?
I don't know.
Oh my God, I don't know.
I'm almost positive it was. I'm almost positive it was. Like, I saw that and I was like, that's so, like, I actually said out loud, like, oh, that's awesome.
That's
Let
funny.
me ask you this.
Mm-hmm.
Did Spider-Man hop on it? Because you're going to get hop-ons.
Oh, that's Joe.
That's great.
God.
So if I could, and I don't know why I am doing, why am I taking this perspective? I love the scene, and if you ask me, the scene was perfect. But my curmudgeon-y friend was not a super fan of it. In fact, he kind of wrote it off. Because he thought it was cheesy that they were running after each other. Why would any of them run after each other?
Yeah.
They are mostly flight/distance-based people.
Okay.
Fighters, right? I mean, that's kind of
I think,
I was kind of like, yeah, I see your point. Who cares? It was awesome.
I think it's because collateral damage is so fresh in their mind, and the fact that
Tiny did it. Yes.
Tony had them evacuate the airport just so they could fight.
Yeah.
So
and also, Cap's team. The whole fight scene is because they're trying to get to the jet.
Right.
And Tony's team is trying to stop them, correct? Am I wrong?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the fight. That's the conflict in that scene. Mm-hmm. And so they're just running toward the plane.
Yeah. That's true.
I think it's more them like kind of working out their aggressions a little bit too.
It's symbolic. I mean,
yeah.
And also we get Spidey.
Spider-Man.
Yeah.
So awesome.
So awesome.
I love how not necessarily unproven, but how eager he is to please like his boss, basically. Like this guy he admires that keeps talking about his hot aunt. And it's just it was so great. And his little quips and everything. Like at one point, I don't remember the exact part, I think it's when he webs Bucky and Falcon. But like he says something, and then they're just like, we don't usually talk during this.
It's
so much fun, and it's hilarious. so great and so fresh. It's so much fun, and the acrobatics and the choreography of him moving around and the web slinging is so fluid and just so well done. I had such a blast watching this. For that.
Yeah. So did I. It was great. But he kind of overshadowed the other great bit part, which was Ant-Man.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which was also hilarious and awesome.
Okay, so first of all, before all of this, Paul Rudd's introduction into the movie, I just loved it so much. How he's just kind of nerding out, like he's like, "Oh, Captain America, you're so great." Or I don't remember exactly what he said.
Thank you for thinking of me.
Right. It's Ant-Man, the further I got away from it, I thought that it was a good entry in the universe, and I thought that it was, with all of its production problems, they made a really good, competent movie out of it, but it still felt a little bit like it was just, kind of a supervillain that just kind of just wasn't as up to par and everything, and the action set pieces were good and everything, but seeing Paul Rudd in Captain America Civil War was like, like this is where it like clicked that he fits in to this universe so well.
Yeah, he
And
does.
It was just really satisfying to see that. And in the Giant Man thing, is that what it's called in the comics, Mike?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was so cool.
Yeah, it was.
That was awesome. That was awesome.
So
Awesome.
good. So
I
good.
didn't really understand the orange slices joke.
Me neither.
Like, why did he ask? That's just
Was
random. Is it a
that like
reference
a-
to
What is-
something?
What did he say about orange slices?
After he gets like knocked down, and I think he shrinks back down to normal man size. He's like, "Does anybody have any orange slices?"
Well, I just took that. I don't know. It could be a specific reference. If it is, I don't
Yeah.
know it. But I took it to be like at the end of baseball,
Right.
somebody's mom would bring orange slices, and everybody would get an orange slice.
Yeah,
That's a really interesting take. I kind of took it as kind of get him out of his daze thing, kind of like a smelling salt kind of thing. That was my
Oh,
interpretation
yeah.
of it, but I don't
Maybe.
know if that's a thing.
I don't know.
maybe. I still laughed,
Oh yeah, me
but
too.
it was just kind of random.
Yeah, and just seeing like the whole, like I hate to go back to it, but the Giant Man thing was just like it's really good. And it was like that. It was like that really old movie, Honey, I Blew Up the Kid. Anyway, that was a stupid joke. That was dumb.
Yeah, it was.
Anyway, yeah, so that whole sequence was fantastic. And even though they were like I think Scarlet Witch references that they're pulling their punches, or I think that she said that one character was pulling their punches.
Hawkeye. I think.
Hawkeye.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, the stakes of it, like, the stakes of it, in that moment, in the fight and everything, nothing too severe is going to happen, but it's just so incredible to see all of these people that have all of these abilities and all of these powers go at it and duke it out, even though they're pulling their punches, even though you know that the stakes aren't that great. You know that it's still satisfying to see all of these powers all at once, all on display, and filmed so cohesively.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's just
for
incredible.
sure.
However, there were stakes because War Machine gets pretty a little banged up.
A little banged up, yeah. Just a little bit.
Gets damaged. Do you guys think he should have died?
I don't know.
I think
Is
think
that
so,
too
yeah.
big?
I think it would have got. What did you say, Tony?
I think it would have been prematurely raised the stakes, I think.
It would have been a little too heavy for a movie that's so contingent on kind of snappy repartee and the comedy and it would have just dampened the rest of the movie a little bit. Having said that, I mean, the sequence is incredibly terrifying. Just seeing him just fall and the thud at the end,
man.
that was just, it was freaking brutal.
Yeah.
And it was just, it conveyed enough of the heaviness that it needed to without actually killing him off.
Yeah. It was bleak enough.
Yeah.
I think.
Oh yeah. And I like that it was the Vision that just, it's purely by accident. It's not like it was an accident. I like that it was an accident and it wasn't something that like no one did it out of anger or out of like wanting to irreparably damage him
Right.
or kill him. I like that it was just an honest mistake, much like Scarlet Witch in I think it was Lagos. I keep
was
saying
Lagos,
Yeah,
yeah.
Lagos at the beginning. Like it shows that they're not perfect people, not perfect beings, that they're going to make mistakes, and I think that's kind of an underlying thing throughout it.
sure.
And I thought that it was handled really well.
Yeah.
Let's see.
So the finale?
Yeah, let's do that.
We should jump to that.
Oh,
I
yeah.
think. Yeah.
So, as we said before, the idea that there were all of these super soldier specimens that he was going to wake up or whatever, like the misdirect of that, like, I mean, I was all, like I said, I was geared up for it and everything, but what we got was so satisfying and such a better thing for it. I get the sense that if they would have gone with the super soldier plot and then that they would have been fighting all of these different superpower beings, I feel like that would have spelled doomsday for the movie.
Hey-oh! Whoop, 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 whoop.
No, but yeah, I like that the lead up to that is Tony talking to Cap's people when they're imprisoned, and he's like, they don't trust him anymore, and they like, the power of that scene just was really well done. And I like that he comes to the scenario, he comes to the location like ready to just, make amends and fight with his buddy. Of course Zemo had different plans, but what did you guys think of the lead up to it and the actual fight?
Well, again, the lead up to it, I think, was great. It was such an effective misdirect. I think as an audience, we wanted to buy it too. We wanted to be misled. I know I did, and it was just great. It was perfectly effective.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think so too. We kind of hit on that, and I believed it. I loved it. I felt it. It was awesome.
Yeah, and I mean, just the reveal. Also, we talked about the reveal earlier, but the actual fight between those three was just, oh my God, it was so brutal, so raw, and so emotional, and you could tell in the choreography and the way that they moved, and it was just so, like, seeing Tony in that way, like, you can tell, like, this has changed him, and he's like, I was sitting there thinking, like, there's no way, like, he can't change, like, it's not going to be like a simple, like, oh, hey, wait, hang on, he was brainwashed, all that. It's like he's out for blood, and it was just so communicated so well, and I loved the rawness of it.
Also, the security footage was brutal. I mean, he essentially bludgeons
that's true.
Tony's dad to death, and then with his human arm, not even his metal arm, chokes his mother to death.
Yes.
I mean, that was really brutal, and but I think it needed to be, because you needed the raw emotion of Tony, just like you said, out for blood.
Right.
You needed that, and I think that was an amazing vehicle for that.
Right.
That was maybe poor choice of words, but it was. I'm glad they went that far with it. I'll put it that way. It was good.
Yeah,
me too.
Me too. I thought it was awesome. I love. What were you gonna say, Tony?
I was saying the brutality of the fight afterwards itself. It was, hand to hand, not a lot of flair. It's just brutality, pound and ground fighting. Very, very anger driven. It's not precise choreography. It's just bare knuckle, balls to the wall fighting. I appreciated that style.
I love there's the moment where you get the comic book cover shot where they're kind of between two beams, and then the repulsor blast is like bouncing off the shield. It's just a beautiful shot. The other thing I love, and this kind of sounds like a good place to end, but the other thing I love is that for the first time ever in a versus movie, somebody wins.
Yeah.
Now, I'm maybe Captain America hasn't won the war, but he wins the fist fight and walks away the winner. And I guess I'm a Captain America fan, Team Cap. I thought it was cool that for the first time ever in a versus movie, somebody won.
Yeah,
for a change.
Agreed.
And I love the look of kind of terror on Tony's face when Cap has the shield. He's about to bring it down, and you think for just a split second, like, is he going to decapitate him?
Yeah.
It's just like there's a brief look of horror on Tony's face, and then he just takes it into the chest, and it was just, man, it was the perfect end to that scene. And I love that, like, even though there is a winner and everything, that their conflict isn't resolved, their issues aren't resolved. And I love that Tony ends with saying, like, this is, my father made that shield, it doesn't belong to you or whatever, and then Cap just drops the shield. It's just so I loved it so much.
Yeah, like Tony, he's being a sore loser essentially, and and Cap's just like, it's not about that, and that's why he just drops the shield without a second thought. He's like, here, that was again very, because Tony Stark doesn't know what it's like to lose,
right? And he's playing on his emotions too, like
he's playing on his emotions.
Response.
He's also defeated, and again, he also knows that Captain America is better.
Yeah,
and right,
which I love, and right, exactly.
Yeah. Although you got to hand it to Tony. I mean, he held his own.
He really did.
Against two superpowered soldiers, like World War II trained soldiers. Like hats off to Tony.
Word.
So yeah, as we're kind of winding down this review and everything, let's just kind of talk about let's talk about the tags, the two stingers at the one after the initial credits and then the end credits. So the first one where we see that Bucky is being put into a cryo chamber and it's in Wakanda with Black Panther. What did you guys think of that? What did you glean from that? And did you enjoy it?
I did enjoy it. I think it was a nice end cap, and I like that it further it gave further relevance to Black Panther.
Mm-hmm.
They're throwing all their chips at Black Panther. I mean, he wasn't just kind of thrown in the mix. He was integral to this story, and he's going to be integral to the rest of the cinematic universe. And I think that was just a cool thing to do.
Right, and I thought it was a good end iron because you said end cap.
Oh, that's nice.
Anyway, yeah, I agree. I like the visual style of the high tech stuff that I think that the aesthetic of the high techness that Black Panther has at his disposal is going to be really interesting for the movie, because the movie is going to be in Wakanda, and it's going to be, am I pronouncing that correctly?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a different world basically, and I like that we have that technology, and I like that he has that to play with.
Yeah.
Mike, how about
I
you?
feel this. I these days I feel the same way about stingers as I do about encores at a concert. I love them, man. They're fun, but they're so obligatory and unnecessary anymore that they kind of they get a little annoying at times.
Yeah.
You could just use that in the movie. They're just weird.
Mm-hmm.
My favorite one. My favorite one is the first, right, where Tony Stark walks in, or Nick Fury walks in and says, "I'm putting a team together," because that's something new, that's something surprising, that's something fresh, that's something they've never done before. And then the other one I like is where they're eating shawarma at the end of Avengers, because that's funny. Other than that, it's just information they could have put into the movie. So I don't know. I'm sorry to be such a downer.
No.
Of course they're cool. Of course I love it, but do we need them anymore?
Well, that's how I felt about the Spider-Man one. The very last one. I don't think I got. Did we get anything out of that?
Just
No.
that Tony
He's got a
giving
spider
him more
signal.
toys. Is that what that was? Because what I took from that was that he activated it in the blinking light. Like maybe he has files of information that he can use to enhance his suits and stuff like that. And that's what I took from it.
Could be. Looked like a spider signal to me.
Okay.
Okay.
But my main thing, the reason why I actually enjoyed that tag a lot was that, and granted, this isn't really indicative of Captain America movies. It wasn't the way with the Winter Soldier, but after seeing the tag for Age of Ultron, I'm glad that this movie exists and this movie doesn't have any Thanos stuff in it, because I feel like they've been slowly building up Thanos, and it was really kind of egregious in Age of Ultron. And even with the ending, I dug the ending where he has the gauntlet and he says, "I'll do it myself." It's okay, so we've been seeing this for 8 years. F***ing do it already. It's and I'm glad that we don't have to have a Thanos Easter egg or anything like that in this movie, because this movie is really important to the characters of the universe, and we don't need to have that kind of teaser for something that we're not even going to see for another 2-3 years.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Agreed.
Yep. So does that wrap us up for the review of Captain America: Civil War? Anything else you guys want to talk about or get in before we switch over?
That was pretty
Sounds good to me.
pretty
Put a bow
extensive.
on it.
I think we're done. Yeah.
Sweet. Okay. Well, you guys want to do a brief potpourri?
Very brief. Yeah.
Okay. First of all, I just want to briefly run through a few things that some other podcasters have said to me. Basically, friends of the show I've been texting them and tweeting them and messaging them on Facebook, and I just want to give them shout outs and say what they said. So Pat from the Nerds You're Looking For said, Captain America Civil War is everything I wanted it to be. The villain isn't great, but I figured it wouldn't be till they finally get to Thanos. Brian Davis from Film Schlubs said, Civil War works because it's humans versus humans for the most part, and when you thought a doomsday moment was coming, they tied everything together via its leitmotif and kept it a human versus human story without any alien/robot nonsense. Jeff from...
It's pretty good.
Oh, yeah. I mentioned that that Civil War and Winter Soldier are kind of neck and neck for my favorite of the universe. And Jeff Palermo from Sci-Fi On Screen said, "I feel similar, but for me, Winter Soldier is the better movie. The action scenes in Civil War didn't have the crispness and clarity that Winter Soldier had. I got that right away. Was very surprised, but he still enjoyed it." And finally, Doug from Movie Madness Podcast said, "Best Marvel movie to date. Guardians is still more fun, but Civil War has such balance." And I agree with that assessment.
Good.
So,
Yeah, nice.
Oh.
All right, so we're going to go ahead and do a brief potpourri section, which, for first-time listeners of the podcast, potpourri is the section of the podcast where we basically talk about things that we've watched lately or looking forward to or anything that's on our obsessive viewer minds, basically. It's anything we want as long as it smells good. And Mike, do you want to get us kicked off with potpourri?
Yeah, I'll start. Haven't done my segments in a while. What was the segment that I missed that I was gonna record, but then we decided I was just gonna be on the show? Do you guys remember what movie I saw?
I do not.
It was the movie after The Jungle Book, I believe.
It was after The Jungle Book and before Captain America. I don't remember what it was. I don't know. Apparently it doesn't matter. But what I do want to talk about is I've kind of taken in, I've always wanted to watch some of the animated DC movies that are out there. Really, any of the animated comic book movies. I'm not a big fan of animated movies. I don't know why, I just never have been. But like every time I see one pop up, I'm always interested. And they've made a big stink about the fact that The Killing Joke is coming out, and Mark Hamill is the Joker, and Kevin Conroy is Batman, and people are kind of excited. And so, I'm excited for the idea of it, but I didn't really have any intention to see it. So I thought, I have a little bit of time. I'm sitting around. I'm playing Pokemon. I could have it on in the background. And so I started watching Son of Batman, which is the story of how Damian Wayne becomes Robin, which was really cool. Great animation. The voice actor for Batman was a little weird, and you don't get to see a whole lot of Bruce Wayne, so Batman feels very stock, very like it's hard to separate the fact that somebody drew him, if that makes any sense.
Okay.
Okay.
But also surprisingly violent for a cartoon. I thought that was pretty cool. A lot of slashes, a lot of blood. And then before this podcast started, I got about an hour into the Flashpoint Paradox, which started out pretty well, and I look forward to finishing that.
Interesting. I know that DC has really kind of cornered the market really on animated feature-length movies, and I know that they get a lot of buzz and a lot of appeal for the fan base and everything, so it's interesting. I'm glad that you enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to The Killing Joke. Cool.
Yeah.
I know, for sure.
Nice.
Cool.
So, Tiny, what documentary do you have for us this week?
I actually do. I did a couple fiction movies in a row there. So I watched a documentary called Catching the Sun, and shockingly, I didn't love it because I tend to love all the documentaries I watch, but this was about the future of solar energy, specifically in the United States more than anything. It focuses on how it can be not only a environmental but mostly an economic boost for our country and for the entire world. It kind of follows a guy who's out of work, and he goes into this training program to where he can work in the solar field and install panels and stuff like that and know how the circuits work. It follows a gentleman by the name of Van Jones, who's kind of like a political pundit, and he's chosen to focus on environmentalism and the future of solar energy. And for a while, he was President Obama's green jobs czar, if you will. It didn't last very long, but he worked in the White House for a while, so he has a book out there called The Green Collar Economy, which I actually read. It's interesting. So he's a pretty enigmatic man. I think he's an interesting person, so it's kind of cool to see him behind the scenes. I enjoyed that. But yeah, the documentary was just okay. Honestly, I didn't get any earth-shattering information. There was nothing that was really cool about it. It didn't even have a particular style. But I'm pretty passionate about this particular issue. I think the United States can have a huge role in the future of solar energy, and I think that's a good direction to take our energy future is the solar direction. I think it just makes sense. So I seek out information about that issue, and this was another piece of it. Unfortunately, not as enthralling as some of the stuff I found. Even there's some articles that I've enjoyed more than this documentary. But I'll take what I can get. It was okay. It's on Netflix. I think it was like barely over an hour. It was barely like a feature length documentary. It was okay.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, that I've got nothing for that.
Okay, yeah. Another documentary.
Yeah, that's interesting. So I haven't really gotten a chance to really watch anything outside of what I've been podcasting about, whether that's here or on my guest spot on Film Schlubs or for Anthology. But recently I've been seduced back into watching The Simpsons, like classic Simpsons, and I've actually been listening to a podcast called Everything's Coming Up podcast, which is hosted by Ali Gertz and Julia Prescott, and they basically have a guest on every episode, and the guest brings to the table their favorite Simpsons episode, and they just discuss it. It's very laid back and very conversational, and it's very much a celebration of the institution of The Simpsons. And hearing them talk about it so passionately made me just really want to go home and just watch The Simpsons forever. And I've been watching like a couple episodes here and there, just classic episodes like Radioactive Man, and it's just so. I mean, obviously, classic Simpsons, and I don't know how they are today, but the classic years are just some of the greatest TV writing of all time. And
it really is. It really is.
It's so majestic. It's so brilliant. I can't imagine the brilliance of it. And it's funny because hearing them talk on that podcast about, the writer's room and how like behind the scenes little factoids and stuff like that. I'm thinking like it's a bizarre thing because like in my head it's like I've grown up with The Simpsons. Like it's making me realize how much of a emotional bond I have with Springfield and its characters and everything, and it's just so weird to think like it's the classic like little kid realizing that people create the things that you love. It's like there's a writer's room that's breaking the jokes and everything. It's like, because it feels so seamless, but I don't know. It's amazing to kind of reconnect with this show. And, yeah, it's just so brilliant. So freaking brilliant.
That's cool, man.
Yeah. I love it. And like, I'm just going I'm not like going in any discernible order. I'm just kind of picking out episodes here and there, but yeah, it's so great.
Nice.
Yeah. And that about does it for this week's episode of The Obsessive Viewer.
Lengthy episode,
yeah. How are we at on recording?
Well, the recording is over 2 hours.
Holy crap.
So
okay, so that about does it for this week's episode of The Obsessive Viewer. And to remind you guys, here in like how many? 6 weeks, we're going to be at Indie PopCon. That's the weekend of June 17th. And we're going to have stuff at the booth to give away, candy, stuff like that. We're going to probably have stickers and a bunch of stuff. We haven't really talked about it.
And we'll be there.
You can
come meet a celebrity.
Right?
Don't take this away from me, man.
Anyway. No, so that's going to be fun. Then I think tomorrow, Tiny, you and I and Greg, we're going to meet for Shocktober.
Yeah, we are. Yeah. Start planning.
Yeah, with Shocktober.
Oh, Shocktober the 3rd, season of the witch.
Oh, yes. Shocktober in Irvington 3 is going to be October 14th at the Irving Theater. So we'll have more details in the months to come, but it's going to be fun.
Nice.
So, yeah. Cool. So that does it for us, and we'll see you guys next week. I think we're going to do a topic episode.
Something, yeah, we're not sure yet.
Music/musician.
Yeah, maybe.
Possibly.
Oh, we're doing that one?
Yeah. If you guys want to, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I want to do. That'll be good.
Okay, cool. So join us next week for that, and we'll see you then.
Bye, guys.
Thanks for listening.
Very cool.
And apparently, I'm gonna get this wrong exactly, but I think the people who did the choreography or some aspect of
the raid.
Oh, I was gonna say John Wick.
Oh,
Also did some stuff on this movie.
did they do? I know the people who did the Winter Soldier is the choreographer who did the raid.
Right, and the choreographer for what did I just say?
John Wick.
For John Wick also helped on this movie. I just heard that on a podcast. So.
Helped or was replaced or replaced?
I don't know exactly.
Yeah.
But
How did you guys like John Wick?
I did. I thought it was fun.
I was underwhelmed.
Really?
I thought it was going to be the next great thing, and it was just okay.
People were making it out to be like that. I don't know. I enjoyed it. I thought the action sequences were really good in it. So, but that's neither here nor there.
Yeah.
But yeah. So, yeah.
Thank you for listening to The Obsessive Viewer, presented by ObsessiveViewer.com. You can find more of our episodes at ovpodcast.com, and you can subscribe to the show on iTunes, Stitcher, or your preferred podcast app. The Obsessive Viewer's theme song is An Eclipse of Events and is provided by Loudlike from their EP Mistakes We Must Make. You can find that and more great music from them on iTunes, and like their Facebook page at facebook.com/loudlikemusic. Any and all feedback on the podcast is encouraged. You can email the hosts individually at Matt, Tiny, or Mike at ObsessiveViewer.com, or send an email to the podcast in general at podcast@ObsessiveViewer.com. Check out the Obsessive Viewer blog at ObsessiveViewer.com, where we post movie and TV reviews and the occasional editorial about the business of entertainment. You can also like us on Facebook at facebook.com/TheObsessiveViewer and follow us on Twitter at ObsessiveViewer, at ObsessiveTiny, and at I Am Mike White. If you want more obsessive content in your life, check out our sister site, ObsessiveBookNerd.com, for book reviews, author spotlights, and a general celebration of reading. Finally, if you're philosophically curious, check out Tiny's side project podcast, The Secular Perspective, which explores the concepts of faith, religion, and existence from the perspective of secular hosts. You can find that at thesecularperspective.com and subscribe to the podcast on the podcatcher of your choice. Again, thank you so much for listening. We love you. Be excellent to each other.
All right, I've run out of patience. On to roost!
Hey, everyone.